My name is Joshua Gibson, and you are listening to the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast, a show dedicated to promoting a message of critical thinking as it pertains to strength training, nutrition, and well-being. This is done through interviews with experts, high-level athletes, coaches, and people heavily involved in strength sports and athletic development. Pull up a chair, grab a coffee, and let's get on to today's podcast. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Gibson, and I'm joined today by none other than the Ann Aita, who has been on the podcast previously and absolutely crushed that episode. And with the way things have been moving and shaking with Team Aita and with their gym, Max's gym, and with all the different stuff they have going on, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to catch up and keep people up to speed with everything that's happening. So Joanne, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think we're both committing a tragic sin in that we don't have caffeine with us. I don't have coffee. You say you didn't have any caffeinated beans. And you were desperately looking for some. So I think we're kind of already starting the podcast off on a rocky note.
There's only up from here, Josh.
Exactly. Actually, that's the greatest perspective we could have. It's only up from here. And to kind of lead in, I think, to preface the episode, what I wanted to talk about, what I thought would be really cool is how things have changed for you and for you and Max, and then for the gym and the team over the last 10, 15, 20 years of being in weightlifting and powerlifting, and what that's looked like, because it seems like as of late, like a lot of things have kind of grown and developed into almost like what they could have been or were wanted to be, and that Max's gym has a physical location now, a big physical location that's its own space. The weightlifting AI is getting like full-time worked on it with multiple people, and there's been a lot of resources directed toward that. There's now the commentary with you guys going to Saudi Arabia and being involved at even a bigger level now, having done multiple international competitions, and this being maybe the biggest one in recent memory. So It feels like there's a lot developing, and I wanted to pick your brain on what that's like from your perspective and what your thoughts are, and then I thought you could share that with people listening who are coaches, athletes, enthusiasts, people who aren't sure if they want to be in weightlifting or in strength sports, or people who are and are unsure of like what that looks like or what that means, because as with most of these pursuits, it's really easy to say, well, I would love to open a gym. I'd love to start a team. I'd love to coach full time. I'd love to do all these things. And then once you start, it's never quite so straightforward and simple. And I thought you'd be the best person to talk to all of this about. So before we get into that, how was Worlds? Because I know you probably had a blast.
Yeah, Worlds was awesome. I definitely had a blast. It never gets old to watch athletes breaking world records in person live, and being able to be that close to the stage is just awesome. This Worlds was special because it was a mandatory event for the Paris Olympics. So every athlete that wanted to remain eligible for Paris needed to show up. And some of them are allowed. I mean, you're always allowed to just weigh in, because if you are injured, for example, it doesn't mean that you have to forfeit your eligibility. But we were fortunate that most of the athletes did compete. So I think sometimes with this current qualification process, where you just have to make you just have to make a total to be in the top 10. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of these details. But with the way that it is now, if somebody made a really high total, that's going to keep them in those top 10 throughout the quad, they technically don't need to actually compete in all of the other Olympic qualification events. They do need to show up to the mandatory ones to weigh in. So sometimes we're concerned as, certainly as spectators and as people involved in the sport and with the live stream and the commentating, if all those athletes are going to lift. Because, of course, we as weightlifting fans, as weightlifting coaches, as athletes, as people really involved in the sport, we want to see the big lifts. We want to see the battles, we want to see the competitions. And we were fortunate at this one that most of the top athletes were lifting. And so there must still be this desire to be world champion or make the podium or just get that experience before Paris. So it was a really strong event as far as like our business with Weightlifting House in the UK and the commentating, the TV.Weightlifting House business. That was the most successful since we started. I don't know, like 2.5 years ago. So yeah, that says a lot. It says that as much as Max sometimes talks to me about his fears around what if everybody quits weightlifting tomorrow. And then the trail of fears that leads into we're going to be homeless and starving, and that kind of tunnel that he'll sometimes share with me is like not happening, right? The fact that we had the most viewership for this a live stream of this world is really positive and just as exciting that the sport is in fact thriving. So yeah, I mean, specifically about Worlds, for me, it was extra exciting because my first weightlifting coach, Jim Schmitz, one of the greatest of all time, 3-time U.S. Olympic coach, invited me to coach with him in the back with his athlete from Tonga, Josh Ukalifi. And so I got to coach in the back at a World Championships for the first time. Yeah, so that was like a big kind of milestone. And shout out to Josh. He went 6 for 6 and it was super fun. And it was fun also watching Jim like navigate the room, and because there's just so many changes, people dropping out, people who weighed in that actually were still on the start list. And I got to learn a lot there, and it was just super fun to support Josh and Jim in the back.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can imagine that's as close as you can get to the pinnacle of coaching and weightlifting, and doing it with your former coach and mentor and someone who's been a big part of your journey. That must have been really special.
It was very special. I have a huge smile on my face just still from it. Yeah, and that was only my second opportunity to coach at I don't know, is it seniors or open now? Do we still call it the
I'd say senior. Yeah,
Okay,
senior
okay. I
world.
saw something on the USAW site recently that said open, and I was like, oh, did we switch to the powerlifting terms? I'm not sure, but anyway, I'll call it the senior worlds, and senior international competition. So I had one other opportunity to coach at a international senior competition with Max, coaching Shakesha Johnson in Peru a few years ago. So that was really fun as well.
Yeah. What was it like? Because a lot of us get, content or videos or, information from, the sources themselves, like Weightlifting House, Barbell Stories, Hook Grip, all the media companies. And it's kind of like stylized and done up and um, really polished, but you don't get that kind of like depth of, oh, this is what Worlds is like, going out with, X, Y, and Z people, and having a drink and just kind of cutting it up. And then, people kind of horsing around in the training hall, and, all those things you kind of miss out on. And I know, actually, I don't remember it must have been, yeah, it was Europeans when it was in Armenia. I actually picked you up from the airport, and we talked about it on the way back, and it was really interesting hearing kind of like your experience there. Um, so how was this world in terms of just like the day to day? How was the place itself, like where you were staying? How was the venue? Like, what did you think of kind of it as like an experience in and of itself?
Hey, what's up, weightlifters? Danny here, founder of Onyx Weightlifting Co., a leather accessories company specializing in weightlifting gear. In our shop, we make gear that doesn't get in the way of your performance because we understand that hitting lifts requires your full attention. Our straps, wrist wraps, and belts are designed to be comfortable and reliable, so all you need to do is make lifts. Thanks for listening to our friend Josh's podcast. You can continue to support him by visiting our online shop at onyxstraps.com and using his code PHILWL. That's PHILWL at checkout. See you on the platform.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was interesting getting ready, like mentally, and I guess with my packing and my attire for Saudi Arabia. It definitely wasn't high on my list of things that I would ever, places I ever thought I was going to go. So I have to say I had like some nerves about it. And, I made sure that I did my research ahead of time to, cover my tattoos. And it's interesting when you're a place where it gets like as hot as 120 degrees. I mean, I think it was like a minimum of 110 every
Wow.
day, where you have to wear long sleeves and either long pants or long skirts and no form-fitting clothing, when I'm used to walking around in workout tights and,
Mm.
things like that. But I have to say that it was better, and I guess I don't know if laid back is the right word, but a little more laid back than I thought. I did bring an abaya, like the robe that you wear over your clothing, and then a couple of hijabs to cover my hair. But I didn't end up needing to wear the hijabs at all, which was nice. And I think you probably still have to if I were going to go into one of the mosques, but I
Mm.
we didn't end up having time for that. So that part was fine. As far as the actual venue and the hosts, the Saudi hosts were amazing. Like all the shuttle buses, they were definitely put a lot of effort into making sure it was a really good experience for the athletes and the coaches and everyone who was coming, the media. And so the other nice thing was that we were pretty close to the venue. Our hotel was about a 5 or 6 minute drive. So if we couldn't catch the shuttle, the Ubers were affordable. So we could, pop over in an Uber if we didn't weren't able to wait till the next shuttle bus came. And then at the venue, we were welcomed, and they had this building right outside the venue called the Fan Zone.
Mm.
And it was this smaller building that had complimentary Arabic coffee and dates. There's a whole thing there if you want to. I love learning about the cultures when we travel. So there's no alcohol allowed in Saudi Arabia. So that was a new experience. There were no beers with
Wow.
Seb and Dan after the event. So, which was fine. It was probably a good thing. I got more sleep than I often do on these trips. But apparently, the dates in Saudi Arabia there's so many varieties that a friend of mine who's from that part of the world was telling me that they have date tasting, like you would have wine
Wow.
tasting here, but there's so many different varieties that you can actually go date tasting. Anyway, they had complimentary dates, and they had like 4 different teas, and like you would come in and they would greet you, and the I don't know, it was the federation or the government had put together these gift bags for everyone who came. So whether you were an athlete, whether you were a coach, whether you were a spectator, whether you were just like a um, anyone who came in there was given this really nice woven bag, like high quality. I'm used to kind of like getting like, swag that's like, you kind of like 90% of it goes in the trash. But these were really nice. They had some little souvenirs in them, these little brass like coffee. Like their traditional kind of little like coffee pitchers or whatever you call them, made out of brass. And anyway, like, and they would tell you about it. And then I'm trying to remember what the birds were in there. Did you see Max holding?
Yeah, I did.
I'm trying to remember. Anyway, I'm I need that coffee right now. But anyway, so you could actually like put on a glove and hold this like beautiful exotic bird, and they had camels, these beautiful camels outside that you could ride. So it was like I was like, this is like an amusement park, and it was that was super fun, and just a way to kind of get to know more of the culture there. There were robes that the men could try on. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Max's Instagram, or if you didn't see our stories, I think he still has some up there, and I probably have some up on my page. But Max was sort of having a ball with like diving right into the culture and doing some of the little promo vids in the Saudi attire. So that was really awesome. There were some vendors in there, and then there was air conditioning in there, and there was cold bottled water, and all of it was complimentary. So most people would, if you walked from the training hall, which was on site, which was nice because sometimes the training hall is at a different location, but it was about a 5-minute walk from the training hall to the fan zone or the venue. So we would all pretty much like just that 4 to 5 minutes. You need to go in and get some water and cool off. So we kind of stop in there, get our coffee or our tea, say hi to the host there, and then people could go there in between the sessions for like a little a little respite. And then the venue itself was very nice. And I don't know, I think you were also asking about just the whole experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the training hall, kind of as you said, like is a different experience than probably what you see on stylized videos. So you guys all get to get like the highlights, and I don't know, it's just so cool, like seeing all of the different countries represented. And this training hall was pretty packed. Like there wasn't much space between the platforms, which Max brought up when we were setting up our gym. And everybody wants like lots of space, but at the same time you want to be able to fit a lot of people in to train. And the training hall was like pretty much like platform to platform to platform, just this huge room with I don't even know how many platforms, but there wasn't a ton of space. And you're thinking about Lasha lifting on this platform, and well, he can do it and he doesn't need a ton of space. So certainly we don't need 8 feet between our platforms if the best in the world can lift like that. And it's just at this point, we see a lot of friends, international friends. You start to get to know people, different athletes, different coaches, and it's just like an honor to be in rooms like that with the best in the world.
Yeah, that is really exciting. And even being in the room, I know there was an interview put up on the weightlifting.ai or weightlifting AI YouTube channel with Mizo Isona, and that was really cool. That was a fun video, and he's such a likable guy, just like such a charismatic, like caring, interested guy. Um, what was it like kind of meeting people and being that intimate with them, and like being able to catch up and discuss their goals and aspirations, and um, time in the sport, and for him, the influence his father has had on his competitive career and his time in weightlifting. But what was that like for you?
Yeah, so I actually did those interviews in Colombia at the end of last year. We got the footage, and apologies to anyone who watches them. This was Max's and my first attempt at doing something like this, so
Mm.
we really didn't know much about like the cameras and like the audio. So, my um, video editor has done the best that he can with the footage that we gave him. But I really highly recommend that everyone go give those interviews a watch. So the one you're talking about with Miso, um, that was just so much fun. I mean, it was
Mm.
just with all of them. Uh, it was, it's always an honor to meet and to speak with these athletes that have dedicated their lives to weightlifting and have achieved so much success in the sports. And my goal, this is like my little side passion project. So I'm hoping to do more of them. There's actually quite a few that we haven't gotten up yet. They just need to be edited still. Some of them I invited the lifters and the coaches to speak in their language. So
Mhm.
we have a few of them that are in Spanish that need to get translated. So the project, it was a little bit longer. It was more than I realized I have bit off. Um, so so we're still working on them, but the Misa one was completed thanks to Kevin from the gym. And getting my goal in this was to get more personal with
Mm.
the athletes. I don't think Miso got weepy, but pretty much everybody else that I interviewed have tears in the
Wow.
interviews. And it's just such an honor and helps me feel I feel like it went well despite our technical difficulties, because my goal was to help the athletes feel comfortable enough to share like vulnerable stories. And Misa was amazing because he's just such a likable guy.
Mm.
And that was one of the reasons why I asked him, if we could do the interview. And his story is just lovely. So I don't want to give too much away because I really want people to watch it. Even the full video was only 6.5 minutes. So, but most of the athletes and coaches I interviewed, we edited down from about an hour or more than an hour of footage. So it was just really special. And I feel like, with all of the media out there with Hook Grip and Weightlifting House and Barbell Stories, and that, a lot of people don't watch the competitions necessarily. They just watch the highlights. And I really want people to understand, like, if you know the person behind it, you just
Mm.
want to see the whole thing. You know, you want to see the battles, you want to see their makes, you want to see their misses, you want to see them walking up to the bar, the way they might invite the crowd to cheer for them, or they might ask the crowd to settle down.
Mm.
Um, all of those things, or seeing them like with their coach on the side, whatever it is, like, for me, so much of the sport of weightlifting is about so much more than just the best lifts that they made on the platform. And so, I think, they do these personal stories for the Olympics sometimes, right? And they do you know, I kind of asked, like, one of the questions I asked is like, what is one thing that you'd be willing to share that most people don't know about you, you know? And, and I just feel like those personal interest stories, or whatever you want to call them, getting to know the athlete, is so much of what I love about the sport.
Mm.
It's just so much more exciting to watch an athlete lift when you know them and you have some connection with them. So yeah, it was just an honor, and we only completed one fully. That's up on the weightlifting AI YouTube. Um, but there's, I think, let's see, I interviewed, in addition to Miso, Kuanini from Tonga, who at the age of 20 went to the Tokyo Olympics.
Mm.
I interviewed her and her coach, Ben. That one is just like super touching. She was the first Olympic weightlifter to represent Tonga. Um, and then Andrea and Manuela. So Andrea is from Colombia, and she coaches three of the athletes I interviewed. So Manuela is her daughter. Her daughter is a 45 kilo lifter, now moving up to 49s, which is why she wasn't at this World Championships. Uh, that's just I don't want to get too much into that, but that's a Colombian Federation issue. I guess she wasn't invited to compete as a 49. So she's taking her time getting ready to compete in the 49s. Lesman Paredes, who's pretty well known. He is the current snatch world record holder in the 96 kilo class. So Andrea coaches Lesman, formerly of Colombia, now representing Bahrain. And then Helen. Sorry, I need my coffee to remember everybody's last names or not be afraid to like butcher the last names. But Helen from Colombia, who did compete in Saudi Arabia, and her story is amazing. I mean, her story is like her family didn't have a house with electricity and running water when Andrea met her. And so what Andrea does, she's one of my very good friends. She helps kids. She mostly works with kids. So although she
Mm.
coaches a snatch world record holder, um, her passion is coaching kids in Colombia, and she wants to help them from a young age so that they have something to a goal with their lives that can take them away from ending up on the streets. Whether it's human trafficking or whether it's getting involved in with drugs. And so she really changes these people's lives. But Helen's story is amazing. I'm excited to get that one out because when, as I said, Helen's family didn't have electricity or running water, and she started lifting at a young age, and then I believe she broke the youth I don't know, Pan American record.
Mm.
She broke some record. It was either youth, I think it was a youth record, youth or juniors, but I think a youth record. And the Colombian government or federation bought her family a house. So like her family has a house to live in with running water and electricity. And so, hearing these stories and the types of things that drive some of these international lifters, which is very different than the US lifters, is just really important for people to understand, and I feel like those are the kinds of things that make me want to watch an athlete like Helen and cheer her on and watch her real time, and that those things, like understanding what these people overcome. And then Zoe Smith from the UK, who I've just been a fan of since I can't even remember how long. I met
Mm.
Zoe at the Arnold. I'm pretty sure she was a teenager then. Must have been, I don't know, 2008 or something. I don't know if you followed Zoe, but she's been competing at a high level for a very long time. So that's also um, she's also an inspiration. I competed in weightlifting for 14 years, and I'm still competing 20 years later in powerlifting. And so I really like to see these athletes who have figured out a way to stay in the sport for that long. I find that, really, like inspiring.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I think
yeah.
it's inspiring that, I think that's really inspiring. And one of the big reasons I honestly wanted to record this podcast is to discuss, kind of that journey of, and this is one of the themes on the podcast recently, especially with Seb and Weightlifting House, is talking about the years leading up to kind of um, this big growth or this big change. And I think in a future podcast, maybe like a week or two after this one's released or around the same time, I'm actually going to have Seb and Dan Kent on the podcast to discuss, Weightlifting House a bit more. I would
Awesome.
love, yeah, I'd love to have Dan's perspective. And I think, looking at what you and Max have done, and it's cool talking about worlds because I think that sets the scene up to where you mentioned, I keep saying it like it's the first time it's happened. I'm like, oh, it's so cool. They get to do commentary at these international events, but it's like, it's been a long time now. We've probably done a handful of them. And hearing you guys recap what that was like, being in the training hall, watching the event, talking to the athletes, all the travel, it's really, really cool. And the same kind of changes I feel with Weightlifting House and its growth. I see that happening with Team Aita and Max's gym, where you guys just moved into a new space and have kind of changed that after over a decade. And
Mm-hmm.
all the other things that are kind of developing and kind of brewing and being built. So what's that been like? You mentioned competing and being in powerlifting for 20 years and competing in weightlifting for 14, but this has been your profession or your career almost as long, and now it's kind of come to a point where you guys get to expand the gym, um, have more weightlifting, and have more weightlifting, have more space for powerlifting, offer like general strength classes, and to make this kind of a bigger part of what you guys do. So maybe you can kind of get us up to speed with how those changes came about.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you're asking me this and I'm thinking about it. Like, Max started coaching earlier than I did, but he started in weightlifting at the age of 12. And basically has dedicated his life to it. And let's see, Max is the young 39. I'd like to say I'm 39, but I'm at now 53. So so what is that? From 12 to 39,
Mm.
that's 27 years.
Mhm.
So he's been involved for 27 years, and this is my 20th year being involved in these sports. And so starting from, 2003, where I met Jim and was just some like I don't even know if I was a hobbyist. I was like, oh, I'll try this. And I only trained for 2 days a week for I don't know, the first probably year and a half. I just barely had dipped my toe into it. I had a lot of other things going on, and so it started with this just oh, I'll try this out kind of thing, to qualifying for national events and just becoming a higher level national athlete. And then coaching for me didn't start until after I met Max. I met Max in 2009. 2009. I think I got that right. Beginning of 2009. And then I started coaching in 2010. So I started coaching I think once a week Olympic weightlifting class at a CrossFit gym at CrossFit Oakland at one of their older locations, and to see where we've come from there. Because, yeah, coaching a once a week class, then even before we had the Max's gym space, we were just coaching. Max was still at Cal Strength coaching. That's where we met. Max had helped start Cal Strength with Dave Spitz before I met him. And then when we were sort of moving out of Cal Strength, we were just coaching at a few different facilities. So we were in the city, we were in in Emeryville. We were at different locations, and then we finally got that space in Emeryville. Was Max, the first Max's gym.
Mm.
That was 2012, and we stayed in that space. And as I mentioned earlier, 740 square feet. A lot of people don't realize how small our space was. And so sometimes having 22 people with
Yeah.
5 weightlifting platforms and I guess 3 powerlifting racks got quite crowded. But I think we really thrived on that energy. Max and I were talking about the other day how, like, when it's not as full in there, we feel like it's not a good thing. But I said to him, I was like, we feel like that, but what's the lifter experience? Because the lifter is the one having to share the bar with like 3 other people, and we love the energy of that and
Mm.
how efficient the old gym was. But I do, people want to get through their workouts, and obviously sometimes people think it's awesome, but I think on a day to day basis, it's nice to have a little more space and for the athletes and just that kind of thing. So we started with this space and we stayed in there for a very long time. And then, yeah, just this past weekend, moved all of our things out of the back of CrossFit Oakland into this much larger space, 2,800 square feet with the office. The office is about 2.5 times the size of the old office. Josh, you know the size of the recent office.
Mm-hmm.
And just to have all of this light. We have a roll-up door in the gym, and the owners of the building are awesome. They used to own a construction company, so they cut in 2 windows from the office upstairs so that we can now offer open gym hours where you can open the windows and you can see the gym and you can hear if somebody needs help under a bench press or whatever. No, hopefully they, call up and ask for a spot and that kind of thing. But, making this move was like a long process for us. And we were really nervous about taking that leap to having that kind of overhead. And we still are. We still are. But I think for us, I don't exactly know how other people do it, but Max and I got into coaching as coaches and love for the sport. We weren't exactly business people. So I think
Mm.
that's like the biggest thing we've learned over the years is that at some point, like, unless you're independently wealthy, you need to figure out how to make money at it, and be financially secure. And so for us, what that took was just, I guess, creating more and more products. And sometimes I think we have way too many products and way too many things that we're doing. But I think it takes that type of creativity and then kind of starting to understand like where can you make money with, like, I guess like the less effort, right? The money that you make that just like drains you isn't going to work. And finding finding the things that can help us run the gym, because the gym has always been like for a community space. Now it's going to be even more of a community space.
Mm.
We can host more events there, more competitions, seminars, all sorts of stuff. So there were times where looking at like the books for the gym, we were like, is it really worth it? Like from a financial standpoint. But, it was just always our love for the community and like having like a team. And although, we love our remote athletes, it's really nice to have a space to go coach people in person, or
Mm.
even a space where, even a lot of our remote athletes will come visit and train at the gym, come for a week or come for a few days and that kind of thing. So I've always felt like the gym is something that I want to keep, even if it's not a huge part of our financial freedom. And so we needed to put on seminars and put on these courses up in Canada at Good Life, and and then Max developed starting the weightlifting AI app some years ago now, and figuring out like a subscription product that can help us feel a little more secure. Because, let's be real, we all have to pay our bills, and, we have a teenage son, and we, yeah, that type of financial stress is pretty significant. And so it's taken many years for us to figure out, and we're still working on it. Like, we have all these pots on the stove, and how do we make a meal out of it? Sometimes I say that. I was like, there have been times where I feel like we just have so much going on, and I'm not quite sure how they complement each other. And so, Kevin has helped a lot. Kevin Spencer volunteered his time to help us out. He does project management at another company. And so he came in, I don't know, I guess maybe like in the past year, came in to kind of help us organize.
Mm.
And he's a big reason why we could see this possibility of opening a bigger space. Um, and how that could work, and just how nice it is to have, how much better it's going to be having the weightlifting AI company in the same building as Max's gym. And just the creativity I already feel that we have in having this larger space. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenge for most weightlifting coaches, probably powerlifting coaches as well, is how to turn it into a business. How to turn it into your profession, how to turn it into a business. Um, so I don't know. I feel like as usual, I'm a little all over the place. So yeah, maybe you can help me. Yeah, is there a certain direction you want me to go with that?
No, I honestly I thought that was great. I thought it was great. It was comprehensive, and I think what you do well and what is great for podcasting is that it's a complete answer, and you kind of you get at the heart of the question, and then you give details that are relevant and make it personable. And the one thing I even picked up on that I wanted to mention, because sometimes maybe for us and maybe less so now, but you're like, man, I feel like I'm always trying to sell stuff on the podcast or sell stuff in these different ways where you're like, hey, go buy this, go spend money here. But really, I mean, that's the result of when you make a living doing this, it's like you need support, and you want support from the people who you feel like, can trust your products, can trust your work, can trust you, and then want to be able to provide and support that, and um, be a part of it. And I think that's what Weightlifting House has done. It's grown super organically. Um, it hasn't outgrown its britches, so to speak, and it's done that, keeping its connection to the weightlifting community really strong, and only growing stronger. So it feels like a company you want to get behind. And it's like I would spend my paycheck there if I had a paycheck that wasn't from weightlifting. Um, so I think when you kind of tell me that, it's like, yeah, of course. If I lived in the Bay Area, I'd be at Max's gym, and I'd be going to one of the, you know, I'd be going to the open gym if I didn't have time for team training, or I'd be going to the team training, or the weightlifting technique class. If I wanted to brush up on my movement and train a couple times a week, or if I wanted to be a part of the women's strong school, I'd go to that. And it's like all of that is really to support people in weightlifting who do really good work and have been a part of it, and chose to make it their chosen profession, which you guys have. And it's largely why I wanted to get you guys on the podcast, is like, for people who do want to do this, they think about it, they consider it, they may be in the process. It's like, what does that sound like coming from someone who's done it for, the better part of over a decade, um, and then had to turn that into something bigger and bigger and bigger, because you can't just start and stay at that same spot. It's got to grow, because as we've kind of spoken about this, and I don't know if you mentioned it in your what you just kind of said, discussing the growth of the gym, but you have to retire at some point too. So, you're building a lot more than just the ability to pay today's bills or tomorrow's bills. You have to build a lot more than that. So it becomes like this big enterprise. So, for everyone listening too, if you're thinking about, well, how can I support Max, Joanne, and all the people associated with Team Aita and even Weightlifting House and Philosophical Weightlifting. It's like, it's buy our products, use a discount code. I mean, listen to the podcast, watch the YouTube videos, buy the live streams, come to the gym. Like, those are great ways to do that.
Come to our seminars, come to our
That's exactly right.
camps. We're doing more weightlifting camps, so we're excited about that. I do have to jump in and just say one thing, Josh, is I'm not sure if you could come to Women's Strong School.
Yeah. Right.
If you know, I mean, I haven't seen you in a little bit, so if you are identifying as a woman, then yes, you're welcome, or non-binary.
Yeah, and I will say it's a great class, a great group of great group of women. So maybe people can go before class, meet everyone, and then promptly leave, and then go to the next class if they need to be in team training or with a technique class. But yeah, I think that's great. I think that the camps are going to be really fun too. You know, the thing about it is, I heard a story about, this is kind of unrelated, but I heard a story about David Goggins and how he kind of like walks around base and won't really talk to people. But if you're hanging out with Max, or if you're hanging out with yourself, Joe, like, you guys are so personable and love talking weightlifting and love, going out and grabbing good food and just talking shop, because it's what you guys do. Eat, sleep, and breathe weightlifting and powerlifting. So if people go to the camps, they get that full experience. They get to go to Habit Burger and talk about, Max eating peanuts for a week, and you getting started in weightlifting and getting started in powerlifting and your experience with that. So I think it's a lot of fun, and I'd really recommend people to check out those opportunities, get the best coaching, and also just to be around really good people in the space.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thanks. Speaking of the camps, can I mention the camps coming up?
That'd be perfect.
Okay, and then making sure I have the dates right. You're coming out for the weightlifting AI camp, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Super excited for that. What did we say? Friday and Saturday, November 3rd and 4th. Does that sound right?
The camp is the Sunday and Monday.
Sorry, Sunday and Monday. See, I don't even know. No, November. I got the right month.
You did.
Okay, so it's November 5th and 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's going to send me a bag of coffee. DM me and I'll give you my address. No. Sunday and Monday, November 5th and 6th, we're hosting a weightlifting AI training camp. And that's for any of our AI users, where this first one is going to be at no charge. People just need to cover their travel costs and their accommodations. We're going to do 2 sessions per day, so there'll be a total of 4 sessions. And we haven't quite put together the curriculum, but we usually have some lectures, Q&As. Sometimes we have speakers come. And as you mentioned, Josh, we like to just go hang out, get meals together, and just tell stories, So it's going to be an invaluable experience. I think we have, about 9 attendees right now. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, we've got about 9 people signed up right now. I'm pretty sure the next ones there's going to be a charge for them. So we'll try and make them as affordable as we can. But if we might do them at different locations, maybe we go to the UK for the next one, or maybe we can go visit Andrea and Lesmond Paredes and Manuela and Helen in Colombia, or, we've talked about different ideas. Those ones will need to be some kind of cost associated. So I encourage, if anyone's listening and you're currently doing the weightlifting AI training app, which is the best. Mm-hmm. So try the 2-week trial if you haven't. But if you're currently doing the weightlifting AI training app, then you can just reach out to Josh or I and let us know, because we still have some spaces. We have more spaces now that we're in the new gym. So we've got some spaces still available, and that's going to be really fun. It's going to be a little test run. It's been a few years since Max and I have done a training camp. We've done a lot of seminars and things like that, but you guys haven't done a training camp recently, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Oh,
so I think it's been a few years since we've done a training camp, so that's going to be a little refresher for us. And then right after that, we fly to Sydney and Singapore. We're going to be there November 10th to the 25th, I believe, is
wow.
the whole trip. And we've got a training camp. There's still, I think, a couple spots available for the training camp in Singapore. So that is going to be. I really should have pulled up dates for all these things. So Lions Den Fitness, I believe, is the name of the gym. I mean, I know it's Lions Den. I just couldn't remember the fitness part. Yeah, Lions Den Fitness, and it's going to be November 17th to the
Hmm.
19th. So that's going to be a 3-day camp. Those are going to be longer training sessions. That's pretty much 3 days, all day. So that's going to be a more extensive camp. And yeah, just let us know if you want to come or go ahead and sign up. Um, and Sorry, I just got a text message. I just got a text message from Dewey. So the boat is leaving right now. Does that mean anything to you, Josh?
I no, that that doesn't.
So let's just say that we're in West Oakland now, and it's in an industrial area. We're in Emeryville before, which was a little more, I don't know, I guess a little more cleaned up than West Oakland. So when we signed the lease to the gym the day before we flew to Saudi Arabia, and there was one abandoned car across the street.
Wow,
And then when we got back from Saudi Arabia, there were 3 abandoned cars.
that's hilarious.
But there's been a boat, an abandoned boat has been there across for, like, I don't know. The owners are super cool. They said they've called the city like 17 times to get this boat removed, and they won't come get it. And so Thomas, like the owner, said, because we came back and we're like, what what is going on over here? And he's like, don't worry about it. I'm gonna get them all removed by early next week. And so he just brought a freaking forklift out there yesterday. And he
Wow.
was just picking up those cars and moving them. I don't know where, but he moved them. So the boat is leaving right now. So there are, at least for one day, we're going to have no abandoned vehicles across the street from our gym. Anyway, that was hilarious. Sorry. So back to the training camp. Um, Back to the training camp. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Super excited for that. I have never been to, well, actually, I was in Singapore when I was like a baby. So I don't remember Singapore. So I'm excited to go there. And then we're going to be doing a coaches workshop, weightlifting coaches workshop in Sydney. Um, I think that's right before we leave to come home, and that'll be great. That was one of our friends who's in the sport in Australia. He wanted an event where coaches could come and ask questions. They could, show us videos. We could do case studies. Like, I have this lifter who jumps forward. What
Mm,
exercises do I give them? And to just kind of answer all training or technical questions about coaching lifters. And then we're putting a powerlifting or like squat clinic together in Sydney as well. So that's still in the works. And then you and Max have I don't know if it's you. I know you've been working on it. I'm not sure if you're going or if it's just Max, but there's a weightlifting seminar in Florida coming up too, right?
yeah, that's correct. So that is going to be on October 15th. Um, and yeah, we're looking to get people signed up for that because it's going to be a great time there with Max, kind of, going over everything he's learned. And I think one of the things that makes it unique, it makes it a really cool opportunity, is that Carl, the guy who runs Palm Beach Weightlifting, is he's like a really sharp guy, and he's really interested in picking Max's brain about everything. So you can go out, you can hear them kind of banter and talk about weightlifting and training, and I think you get a lot more than you pay for just based on on that alone. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a really cool opportunity for people. So I'd really recommend they check it out. If they're interested and they're unsure how to sign up, there are links in the link trees for myself, for Team Aita, for Max, likely for Joanne. So all the links to all this stuff should be available if you just go to our Instagram accounts and then look at our bio and click on the link there.
And thanks for reminding me, because I'm sort of randomly saying all these things they can attend, but not really good at giving good information as to how they can sign up. Because thanks for the reminder. Because our Instagram team_Aita has the link tree that should have links to most of everything we just talked about. The camps, the seminars, and all that good stuff. And you and Max have like endless amounts of information. And I love that you brought that up, that Carl is going to pick Max's brain, because we love when people ask questions at our seminars and camps, because it really, then we know we're answering the questions that people really want. And, after all of these years in the sports, like we have a wealth of knowledge, and that is invaluable information. I did just think of something that Max said to me last night about making the transition from like a small gym space. Our gym space was in the back of a larger gym, and it served us very well for 11 years. And but what he said, which really made sense to me about taking the leap to having our own independent space, he said that, and he did hear this from someone else, I don't know who it came from, but he said, in our old space with the low overhead, like you're not going to lose, right? Like it takes very little to get the rent paid, and it's really safe. So you're not going to lose, but you're never going to win.
Right.
And
yeah.
so that was like, we
Wow.
win. And I was like, I also thought about it, and with all of our experience, it's like, if anybody could have a successful gym in the Bay Area, like, wouldn't it be us? And like, we have such a good, team of coaches. Just our membership is just full of an awesome, like, group of people, and we just want to grow that community and reach out to everyone at all levels. We even just talked about having a 2-day a week, like, women's strong school foundations or fundamentals, right? Because even though I feel like Women's Strong School is open to everyone, I have, half the women in there never touched a barbell before they came into the gym. What I'm hearing from some of the ladies is that it's still intimidating to their friends, so we want to just start programs, really entry level programs that help us be accessible to everyone in the community, because I, for one, just am such a proponent of strength sports. I believe that strength training and weightlifting, whether it's powerlifting, whether it's weightlifting, whether it's, doing step ups, like anything to build your strength, is going to strengthen your tendons and your ligaments, and it's just going to help you live a better life. And so I'm super excited to have the space to be able to offer more to the community. So also, if anybody has questions about like their business, how to run things, like, not to say that I'm a specialty in like, I'm not a business coach, but I have a lot of experience specific to weightlifting and powerlifting, beginners, intermediate, and advanced. And as you know, Josh, I kind of oversee all the things,
Yeah.
And so I do have a lot of experience that I can pass on. I do consults as well, and my consults can be everything from like, how do I fix my squat, to support around business in this area. So yeah.
I thought it was great. I think that was a great way to kind of take this podcast full circle, where we kind of talked about, we explained you guys getting into the sport and how long you've been in it and what you've been able to do, and then talked about the commentating in the latest worlds, how awesome that is, and then kind of the changes on the horizon for Team Aita and Max's gym, and even the weightlifting AI and all the things associated with it. And I just love like the partnerships that are there between Team Aita and Weightlifting House, and seeing some of my best friends do so well, and make a living out of a sport that's not easy to make a really good living out of, is really cool. And not only that, but then like have a bigger reach and a bigger influence, is really, really cool and really special. If people do want to check that stuff out, Joanne, do you think it'd just be easy if they sent you an email, or if they checked out your Instagram?
Sure. My Instagram is Joanne Aita 7. And Max has his Max_Aita. I think I got that right. Aita being AITA. You can always send us a message through our contact form on our website, which is teamaita.com. And then I think I mentioned earlier the Instagram that has the link tree that should have all of our events is team_Aita.
Awesome. Yeah. And if people want to keep up with what I'm doing and follow along in any capacity, you can go to my Instagram. That's Josh_PhilWL. That's PhilWL. You can go to the Philosophical Weightlifting Instagram account. It's just one word, Philosophical Weightlifting. You can support Team Aita, Philosophical Weightlifting House, and then you'd be supporting all of us. So click the link tree in all of our bios, and you can find exactly what you're looking for. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. We will catch you guys next week on another episode.